Well, welcome everybody. My name is Todd Schulte. I'm the president of Ford.us. I'm just going to briefly start by, I want to thank everyone for being here today. I want to thank the members of Congress for doing their work. And I want to thank Dr. Patel for being here. And I want to thank all of you for being here. You're going to hear from people today who visited America's Child and Family Jail for immigrants. It is a place that a lot of you have covered for some time now. It is a place where, when public attention has been drawn to it and the horrors of incarceration in the immigrant detention system and across the country on children and on families, the stories you're going to hear are shocking. They should not, in this administration, sadly, be surprising, but we can't be numb to them. And so I want to thank the members of Congress for being here. And I think it is on all of us to continue to draw attention. So we're going to hear from the members today, and we'll come around at the end and have questions for you all. And with that, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Congressman Castro for your continued advocacy, for your team's advocacy, and for everyone for being here at such a critical moment in which this administration has more money available to it on an annual basis for immigration enforcement than all but 6 or 7 militaries in the world. And part of that is what we are doing to lock up children and their parents. So, Congressman Castro, thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, first, thank you, Todd, so much. And thank you to everybody at Forward.us for your incredible work in bringing the nation's attention to the horrors at the Dilley Detention Center, what I call the Dilley Trailer Prison. It's an honor to be here today and to have inspected Dilley today with members of the Democratic Women's Caucus who have joined us in San Antonio and in Dilley for this inspection, and also with Dr. Patel, a pediatrician, who has been very outspoken about the lasting trauma, both physical and mental, to the children especially who were imprisoned at Dilley. Recently, as many of you know, there were 110 of us in Congress who came together to demand that the Dilley Detention Center be shut down. We know that it's possible because it's been done before during the Biden administration. The trauma, physical and mental, on those children will be harsh and long-lasting. Every single day that a child spends in Dilley, they are traumatized. And over the past several months, this was the 7th time that I've been to Dilley. I've seen it in their faces, as some of them are stone-faced, others are sobbing and clinging to their parents or begging to get out. The parents themselves are often despondent. There are just very sad and horrible stories about medical care that's either denied or delayed, legal processes that people are not only unfamiliar with, but also that they're in legal limbo. Remember, this is a system where you have young kids who will sometimes have to represent themselves in front of judges in court, something that in the United States, even a convicted killer doesn't have to do because they get legal representation. And so today was no different. Unfortunately, the numbers at Dilley have gone up. There are now more than 500 people there. The last time we were there, the numbers were probably about 100 less. There are now more children there than there were before. They were at 96 in May, they're now at 112. I believe that is the result of the ICE surge that we've seen over the last month or so. So as we've seen these raids on the street, we've seen families that have been torn apart on the street and brutality on the street. The result of that is that more families and more children are now imprisoned at Dilley. Remember, every time a child is put into the Dilley Detention Center, somebody in America makes more money. We have commodified child imprisonment in our nation. CoreCivic is a private prison company whose investors include some of the largest asset managers in this country. That includes asset managers that manage firefighter pension funds and public teacher pension funds and so forth. They are making money the more kids that are put in Dilley. And then finally, a few quick stories, because I told you there's incredible human trauma. I talked to a woman who had recently had a heart procedure done. She had had heart trouble before she went to Dilley, and then when she was there, it worsened. So she had a heart procedure done, a kind of operation, and she was not given the follow-up appointment that she was supposed to have. She was not given the proper medication that she was supposed to have because of that heart situation. We talked to another young woman who, a 16-year-old girl actually, who was there with her father. And she spoke about spending 2 days at the San Antonio Processing Center, Crosspoint. She mentioned that in that room where people are detained, that there are cameras that can see the entire room. And not only is there a camera in the main room, there's a camera that's pointed at the place where people use the restroom. That's how dehumanizing this situation is for folks. There were folks that have lost custody of their kids because they've been detained at Dilley. They've lost their apartments. Some over the past have told me that they've lost their homes. There's another story of a woman, actually that same girl who was on her way to church with a friend here in San Antonio, and they took her to Crosspoint, the processing center. They told her dad that they were going to send her out of state if he didn't come pick her up, that he could come pick her up and take her home. When he showed up to pick her up, they took him in as well. And now they're both in that trailer prison. So this has been a system that has been duplicitous, that has made it a routine to lie not only to the detainees, but also to the public and even to members of Congress. The final thing for me, I've told y'all before, I told you the story of the National Rape Abuse Hotline and how when I picked up the phone to test whether it worked, I picked up the phone and the language was an Asian language. I think it was Chinese. Well, today, all of us had a chance to go see the intake center, and we asked when people are informed about their rights. And ICE and CoreCivic said that there was a digital billboard, which all of us could see, and that was the way that people would get information about the Flores settlement, because kids are only supposed to be detained for up to 20 days. The same language, I think it was Chinese, but it could have been different, was playing on that digital billboard over and over and over. And they said, well, I pointed that out. And they said, well, it's just a rotation. It changes. Well, first of all, there's hardly anybody there that is speaking Mandarin or another language like that. And we asked the people who were detained there when we went into the larger room. There was a woman that said she sat there for 9 hours in the intake room and that billboard never changed. This is a system that is corrupt, that is duplicitous, that is reckless, and this detention center, the Dilley Detention Center, should absolutely be shut down, and we're committed towards working to that. So thank you all so much for covering this. Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague from Arizona, who has been doing a lot of work inspecting the detention centers in the state of Arizona, and that's Representative Ansari.
Thank you, Congressman Castro. First of all, I want to start by thanking the Congressman and his team because their leadership on this issue and on shutting down Dilley in particular and ending the detention of children is not just inspiring to Americans all over the country, but inspiring to all of us, his colleagues here in Congress. So thank you so much. My name is Joaquin Ansari. I proudly represent Phoenix, Glendale, and Guadalupe in the U.S. House of Representatives. Today was my 12th oversight visit at an ICE detention center, the first at Dilley. In Arizona, we have the Eloy Detention Center, as well as the Florence Correctional Center, as well as a holding facility inside of a small regional airport that is the last stop before people are deported to whatever country it is that the Trump government is sending them to. And while I have seen and spoken with dozens of detainees inside those detention centers, and Eloy is also operated by CoreCivic, the same private prison company that runs Dilley. And the conditions we know are horrific, the lack of clean drinking water, the food that is moldy. I've heard about worms being in water fountains, used underwear being intentionally given to women, and the results being UTIs and infections that don't obviously get the treatment that they need because of the severe medical neglect we know exists inside of these detention centers and run by CoreCivic in particular. But I'll say, even after all of those visits and hours and hours of conversations with people there, it is something entirely different to see this happening to kids and to children. And I will never forget, one of the women I met at Eloy said to me, I will never be the same after I leave this place. The physical and psychological torture that I have endured, the trauma that I've endured, and she started sobbing. She said, I will never be the same person. Now imagine that our government with our tax dollars is doing that to children. And that is what I just cannot believe, even though I know the Trump regime is the most corrupt and the most authoritarian in American history. It is still hard to fathom that there is so much evil and so much callousness. The people at the very top, like Stephen Miller and at Department of Homeland Security, that they are willing to put children through such horrific trauma and abuse and, you know, long-term issues that they will have inevitably because of what they're being put through. I spent a while today talking to the 16-year-old girl that Congressman Castro mentioned, and she was like any other 16-year-old girl. She was talking about her high school. She was talking about wanting to join the volleyball team. She was talking about, I asked her who her favorite artist is, and she said Bad Bunny. She was laughing. She was, being hopeful. Also, you could see that she's trying to provide hope for her dad. I also looked very closely at her father, and being somebody who's very close to my father and just knows that father-daughter dynamic well, I can't even describe to you the pain in this man's eyes. The pain in his eyes because he doesn't know what's going to happen to him and his daughter. He's thinking about his wife who's at home with their 2 sons. He was telling me, over and over again, I've never committed a crime. I have no criminal record, and nobody at Dilley has any sort of criminal record whatsoever. And that is just one story. That is the tragedy of all of this. There are countless stories like this of families being separated, of children being traumatized, of people who will never be the same. And the corruption is astounding. Core Civic and Geo Group, in my view, are just absolutely evil. These are 2 companies making record profits as a result of the cruelty of our government. And I just know that, the people standing here, so many of us in Congress, so many Americans who recognize and believe that this is not right, that this is not what American values are about. These are not what family values are about. These are not the values of any religion in this, that's supported or celebrated in this country. We have to do everything that we can to stop this. We have to shut Dilley down. We have to end any family detention. And ultimately, we have to end for-profit detention in this country. And I look forward to continuing to work to do so, and glad I got the opportunity today to see what's happening here in Texas. With that, I will hand it over to a local Texan, Congresswoman Fletcher.
Thanks so much, Congresswoman Ansari. And I join you in thanks for Congressman Castro and his entire team that have welcomed all of us to San Antonio and taken us to Dilley today. I am from just down the road. I'm Lizzie Fletcher from Houston, and am really grateful for the opportunity to be here today to witness myself what is happening in the great state of Texas and in the United States of America. And every American really needs to know what we saw at Dilley today and what we are seeing happening unfold in streets across this country. And so I'm grateful to everyone who's here, who's sharing this information, grateful to Ford US for the incredible work that they're doing to make sure that people don't look away from what we are seeing happening. And both of my colleagues have used the word that if I had to have one takeaway from today and one word, it is trauma. The United States government is traumatizing individuals that it has in detention. I spent a lot of time today talking with some of the adults who are there, because there are families as well as a group of women who are detained at Dilley. And I spoke with women who've been there for 8 months, who were picked up off the street while they were coming home from exercising. They had no idea why they were being picked up. They had no idea where they were going, and they have very little, if any, contact with anyone outside. They don't know what's happening with their asylum case. They don't know how long they'll be there. They don't know what's going to happen to them when they get out, and they're not getting any answers. They're not getting any information, and they're not getting any help, except from the people who are working so hard to share their stories and make sure that Americans know that this cannot go on. It cannot go on in our names. And what we see is these individual cases of trauma for the children and the families But this immigration enforcement regime, ICE, and the Trump administration are creating trauma not only for individuals, but they are terrorizing our communities, and they are creating trauma across our communities. And that's certainly true at my home in Houston, where, as all of you know, we recently saw ICE pursue someone who was not the target of an investigation in unmarked vehicles with plainclothes officers trying to stop Lorenzo Araujo and detain the 3 men who were with him in his van after they shot and killed him in the street. People in Houston are outraged, but they're also traumatized. This is a national trauma, and that's why people need to know what's happening. And people need to speak up and speak out wherever they are, because this is being done in our names. This is being done by the United States government. And I think for most Americans, it is unimaginable, but it is also something, as Congressman Castro said, that has been hidden. It's been hidden because we are not getting information. This Congress is not conducting the oversight that it should be. That's why I'm so grateful to Congressman Castro and to the DWC for making sure that we are doing the oversight work that the majority in Congress is refusing to do. And we need to make sure that people across the country know, as Congresswoman Ansari said, by definition, no one at Dilley has a criminal record. Americans are being lied to about what this administration is doing, who it's detaining, what's happening when it takes them into detention. They're not being honest with the people about how and why and what they are doing. And it has to stop. It absolutely has to stop. The detention that we see in Dilley and the trauma that we see in our communities, it doesn't serve the interests of the American people. It doesn't meet our values and our aspirations for who we are. I know that this is not who we are. And we all need to stand up in this moment to stop it. So again, I'm grateful to be with all of these incredible fighters who are here, including my friend and classmate and colleague, an incredible fighter from Boston, Congresswoman Pressley.
Thank you, Leslie. Again, my name is Ayanna Pressley. I'm a Congresswoman representing the Massachusetts 7th Congressional District, which includes the city of Boston, also home to the 3rd largest Haitian diaspora in the country. And so I've been on the front lines of these grave injustices in many ways. I do want to also just commend Congressman Castro and his entire team and Forward US for your vigilance. It's so important that we not normalize this. It's so important that we not acquiesce to this. This fascist administration, this dictator in the Oval Office, history has shown us time again, appeasement does not work. The only way to beat a dictator is with defiance. The only way to beat fascism is to refuse to accept this segregated, divided, dark, dystopian view that they have for our country, is to reject it as an inevitability. So we have to resist, reject, condemn at every turn, and shine a light. And so I'm so grateful for the leadership of Congressman Castro. This is his 8th oversight visit to the Dilley detention facility. I want to do some quick level setting here. So, and please correct me if my notes were inaccurate. So there are currently 539 individuals, 84 families. 50 out of those 84 families are male head of household. 16 are female head of household, and then there are 18 that are dual. There are also 4 pregnant women. And I want to correct the record because earlier I said when we first came out of Dilley after our oversight visit that they characterized all the detainees as low-level nonviolent criminals. That's inaccurate. They characterized them as low-level non-criminals. That's how they were all, that's how, when we were getting our orientation and asking our questions of the officers, that's how they characterized the detainees, low-level non-criminals. So it seems their only crime is that they exist. These are law-abiding people that are our neighbors, people we love, we live next to, we work and worship with, who were just going about their lives and met with such an aggressive disruption that they will be recovering from for the rest of their lives. And I also just want to say that these are two sides of a very evil for-profit coin. I have worked my entire life to dismantle mass incarceration. And I need people to understand that if you are outraged by the number of Black and low-income people that are incarcerated, the same for-profit system is driving the unlawful detainment and deportation of our immigrant neighbors. Core Civic is worth over $1 billion. So this for-profit infrastructure, this for-profit evil is for child abuse. They are for child neglect. They are for childhood trauma. They are for family separation. One of the young women that I met with, and I have to say, every time I leave a detention facility, I am conflicted because I want to uplift these stories, but I don't want to further endanger anyone. And I know very often when we leave these facilities, they are met with great hostility. And I don't want to put them in any more harm's way. But one young woman that I met with, 30 years old, she is the mother of 2 children, a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old girl. She fell into my arms within a matter of seconds, sharing with me that she was unable to wish her 5-year-old daughter a happy birthday. She also talked to me about how she arrived, how she ended up there. She was delivering packages. She's a delivery driver. And there was a problem with her hazards. So she pulled over her car and had the lights blinking while she went in to deliver the package. When she came out, law enforcement was there. They asked for an ID. She said, you know, why? But she provided it. It was a Mexico ID. So this young lady, this 30-year-old young woman, she was here on a tourist visa from Mexico. Her mother, who brought her here at the age of 4 years old, developed cancer and died. So she's been living here since the age of 4. Working, law-abiding. She fell into an abusive relationship. And there were many, many times that the police were called on her husband, who was a violent abuser. And she is so upset because that abuser currently has the custody of her children. So here she is, someone who is a survivor of domestic violence, law-abiding, making positive contributions, an incredible mom. And she asked me, my husband was released on a bond of $150 after he beat me for hours and even tried to run me over with his car. And I was told that if I wanted to bond out, I would need to pay $9,000, and I've committed no crime. I asked her if her faith is some of what keeps her strong in this moment. And she said, my faith in God is being tested every day. My faith in this country. And then just as I close this, I want to say, so many of the detainees that I have met, whether I was in Louisiana or Texas or in Massachusetts, they are some of the greatest patriots you will ever meet. They love this country and they have been making positive contributions to it every day. And it is a great betrayal. And you see that betrayal in their eyes. You see the vacancy in their eyes. You see the trauma in their eyes. So Dilley must be shut down. We have to abolish ICE. And then I'm going to take it one step further and say, any of those agents that have contributed to and caused the injury, the harm, and even fatalities, they must also be held accountable. And we should abolish qualified immunity for these federal law enforcement officers. There must be some recourse and some restitution. And with that, we'll now turn it over to another incredible member and colleague in the Democratic Women's Caucus. Again, this is a joint oversight visit with Congressman Castro and the women of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Rep. Rivas.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I'm Congresswoman Luz Rivas. I represent the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, California. My district has had the most ICE raids in all of Los Angeles County. It's a majority Latino district. It's where I grew up, where my family immigrated from Mexico. So this issue is personal to me and it's very important to me. I have visited detention centers in California, and this is my first time visiting a detention center outside of California. And I want to thank Congressman Joaquin Castro for inviting us and organizing this visit. I know you've heard stories from my colleagues. I'm going to share comments in Spanish for the Spanish media that's here. Yeah, they're all giving me the thumbs up. Okay, gracias. Yo soy la congresista Luz Rivas. Yo represento el Valle de San Fernando en Los Ángeles, California. Es un distrito que ha tenido las más redadas de ICE de cualquiera en Los Ángeles, en el condado de Los Ángeles. Mayoría latinos que vivimos ahí en mi área. Yo soy de ahí, mis papás son inmigrantes mexicanos. Todo esto que estamos sufriendo, que la gente está sufriendo, es personal para mí como hija de inmigrantes, pero también para la gente de los Estados Unidos que no quiere ver que nuestro gobierno los oficiales de ICE han sido terroristas domésticos, ¿verdad? Cómo agarran a la gente. Y lo que vimos hoy en el centro de detención Dilley, conocimos a familias. Hay más de 500 personas detenidas en este centro, incluyendo a niños. El niño menor, el más menor ahí, tiene 2 meses, es un bebé. Y no lo puedo creer que los Estados Unidos tiene una cárcel con un bebé de 2 meses, ¿verdad? Esto es lo que nuestros impuestos, ¿verdad? De los Estados Unidos, de nosotros, esto es lo que estamos pagando a una corporación, esta compañía que, ¿verdad? Que está beneficiándose de tener a esta gente detenida. Todos conocimos a la mayoría de mujeres que están detenidas, están traumadas, tienen ansiedad, están asustadas, no saben lo que les va a pasar a ellas porque no tienen información, no tienen recursos legales y no tienen tanto contacto con sus familias porque las llamadas les cobran mucho por hacer una llamada y se les va el dinero, ¿verdad? Todo se tiene que pagar ahí. Y no sé, nos dio mucha lástima y queremos ayudarles a las detenidas, a los detenidos ahí de este centro. Y este centro no debe de existir. No debe de haber un centro, una prisión con niños, ¿verdad? Los niños deben de estar en la escuela, deben de estar afuera jugando en el verano. No deben de estar en un centro de detención presos, ¿verdad? Tenemos aquí niños presos. Y por eso venimos aquí para compartir las historias de los detenidos, para que no se les olvide al público americano que esto es lo que está haciendo nuestro país. Pero nosotros estamos peleando y usamos nuestro poder para ir a entrar y a ver las condiciones y compartir las condiciones y las historias de los detenidos. Esto no debe de existir, este centro, y también queremos que ya cierren, que lo cierren y que los niños y las familias que no son criminales, ¿verdad? Ninguno tiene récord criminal, que no deben de estar ahí, deben de estar con sus familias en las ciudades donde viven, trabajando, y por eso vinimos aquí. Muchas gracias. Y next up, Dr. Patel.
I'm honored to stand among these congressional leaders and activists. And of course, I will be endlessly thank you to Joaquin Castro, Representative Joaquin Castro and his team, the Forward US team for bringing us together. And of course, incredibly honored to stand among the Democratic Women's Caucus today. But I am not here as a politician or an activist. I am here as a doctor. I am a double board certified pediatrician and pediatric critical care doctor, is to recognize threats to children's health and to treat children when they're critically ill. I am here today to warn of both an ongoing and imminent crisis just 2 hours down the road. We know unequivocally that children who are detained are experiencing severe, predictable, and lasting harm. More so, it is causing the same trauma to the children whose parents are locked up. And I am here to share their stories today. Representative Pressley mentioned a mother, Vanessa, who was detained. And because she was detained and her 2 children, 3 and 5, the same ages as my own children, are now being housed with someone with a documented domestic violence history. As a pediatrician, we would not send those children into those conditions, yet our government is doing so every single day. I want to go through 3 documented harms that our children are experiencing right now. First, detention itself harms children. The evidence is unequivocal. Children suffer post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, developmental regression, suicidal thoughts, and anxiety. But these are not just diagnoses. These are cruel harms inflicted upon children. Children like Liam Ramos, who is exhibiting signs of post-traumatic stress to this day. 5-year-old Alexander, who was found in his cell with his mother's pants cord wrapped around his neck because he did not want to be in detention anymore. And 9-year-old Kinnick, a beautiful child with autism, whose autism became so severely exacerbated that he was not allowed to go outside anymore. Their answer to his behavioral struggles was to lock him up further. Second, the conditions make it worse. Lights on 24/7. The inadequate bedding, inadequate food, and inadequate water. And I might add, these all represent child abuse. And they also represent human rights violations as defined by the United Nations.
Right.
As a doctor, oh, I'm so sorry. Third, one more. The harm doesn't end at release. Decades of research showing toxic stress in childhood carries lifelong harms. And this not only includes mental illness, it also includes immune dysfunction, shortened life expectancy. These harms are going to stay with these children for the rest of their lives. And as a pediatrician, this is the point that needs to come across. We are not just harming the children inside detention. There is also excellent data to show that we are actually traumatizing this entire generation of children. My own daughter is in a DC public school. She has had her friends, family members taken just outside that school. These children will not be the same if we do not end this now. And to underscore what is at stake, I would like to conclude by naming the 7 children who died or died in or soon after they were in immigration custody. Each of these names are a dark stain on our country's conscience. Jacqueline Ame Rosemary Cal Makin, Felipe Gomez Alonso, Juan de Leon Gutierrez, Carlos Gregorio Hernandez Vasquez, Marie Juarez, Wilmer Josue Ramirez Vasquez, Darlene Valle. I want you to keep those names not only in your hearts, but in your voices, because more children will die if we don't act now.
That's right.
They will. And I am calling not only upon every single citizen, but I am calling upon every single physician, because these are well-documented harms And we are allowing them to happen with our tax dollars. And I want to say just one more thing. Your vote is your ice whistle, and we all need to blow it. Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to open up for questions. I will just say, I think it is really important from what you've heard today to understand this is a thing that we all have to fight through, which is how often can we talk about this? I have 2 daughters. I'm pretty transparent about what I do for work. I don't know that I can tell them what I would see here, but I want us all to challenge that we have to go and tell these stories about what is happening, because it is otherwise happening in secret, for profit, to children and to families and behind bars. It is not visible. And there is violence that is more visible, whether it is the killings in Houston, whether it is the racial profiling outside of a Home Depot or in Phoenix, whether or not it is what we are seeing on a really, really tough and difficult day to Haitians, and whether or not it is seeing this huge expansion of law enforcement doing immigration enforcement here in Texas. And so it is on us to make things that are less visible, visible. I did not know, and I don't think any of us knew until today, that we were looking at a 300 or 400% increase in the number of families who are being held just since we were here 2 months ago, and we have to do that. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll happily open it up for questions.
Congressman Castro, this is your 7th or 8th visit to the facility. Why is it important for you to continue to go back there and show them the facility?
Well, many folks have seen, and in fact, all of America has seen the brutality of ICE on the streets. They've seen the agents in masks with guns drawn, no warrants, storming cars and pulling people out of cars and separating crying kids from their parents. But the members of Congress are the only ones that can go behind those prison walls and attest to the world what's going on there. And this is at a moment where the administration is becoming more secretive, not more transparent. So I invite every single member of Congress. In fact, I would encourage every member of Congress, regardless of political affiliation, to go into the Dilley Detention Center and meet with those children. And if they agree with child detention, to look those kids in the eye and tell them that they agree with child detention. Look those families in the eye and let them know that they're okay with them being there. We are not, and so we believe that Dilley should be shut down. In order to do that, we have to report to the world what's going on.
Okay.
Yes, Antonio.
Okay. You just said something. You said, I wish all members of Congress will go there and see for themselves what's going on inside those walls. My question to you is this: I can see them waiting for the women caucus. Do you believe that every Democrat in Congress will rally behind your efforts? Will you have the vote of each one of the Democrats in Congress supporting?
Well, look, I think you see that we got 110 Democratic members to sign on to the letter to shut Dilley down. Democrats still don't control Congress or the presidency, but I believe that when we do, I believe that the Dilley Detention Center will be shut down. But we also shouldn't wait that long as a nation. It should be shut down immediately. It happened once under a Democratic president, President Obama, President Biden, and it can happen again. And one thing we didn't report out earlier is that we asked again who the youngest person there is. And again, the youngest person there is 2 months old. That place, that prison is no place to have a 2-month-old baby or even a 1-year-old baby be present. And so, yes, I believe we can get it shut down.
Nancy Prayer Johnson, San Antonio Express News. Were you given access to every part of the facility? And in that way, also, did anybody have a hard time gaining access as well? And then who were you able to speak with once you were in there?
Well, so here I've mentioned a few times that ICE has gotten more secretive. When Mark Wayne Mullen, the new secretary of DHS, came in, they no longer put up a sign-up sheet announcing that there was a congressional delegation coming to visit. They used to do that in order to allow any of the detainees who wanted to speak with the members of Congress, including all the families, to actually sign up to speak with us. They cut that out completely. And so today we were only able to speak with one child of all the children there. And so they're becoming more and more secretive, which I believe is more dangerous for the people who are in that prison and really for the public generally. And, you know, in terms of these visits, they allot 2 hours for us to do the inspection. So as a member of Congress, you're constantly having to balance how much of the facility you want to see versus how much time do you want to spend talking to the people who are in prison. And so we spent about an hour actually talking to people, about 20 minutes asking questions. At one point, to give you a sense of the secrecy, and then I'm not exaggerating here, one of my colleagues asked the assistant ICE director for San Antonio, who oversees this region, how many ICE employees, how many federal employees do you have employed at this facility? And she said that she didn't want to tell us the answer to that, that she was unwilling to tell us the answer to that. That's the language that they use, that they were unwilling to tell us, members of Congress charged with an oversight responsibility, how many federal employees are at this facility. So that's the level of secrecy that we're talking about.
Again, they didn't let you have cameras, phones, nothing like that.
No, they don't let you document for the world exactly what's going on there, because I believe that most Americans and even most elected officials, if they could see the trauma in these kids' eyes, they would want Dilley shut down as well.
Congressman Castro, before I go to Texas Public Radio, just a question about if the detention center was actually shut down, if there's any plans in place as to where people would go or how their immigration cases would be handled after.
Well, remember, a significant, first of all, none of these folks have committed a crime. So the overwhelming majority of them were living in communities, not hurting anyone and being productive members of society. So they could easily be monitored in their communities. And we've seen that. We've seen folks who are released on habeas corpus petitions who are allowed back to their homes and who are monitored with ankle bracelets and so forth. Now, bear in mind, again, there's a lot of them who have lived here, some of them for a few decades, without any kind of ankle monitor or anything, that have not committed any crime at all. And so, yes, I think that they could be allowed back into their homes and we could monitor them. And they would do what they were doing before, which is they would show up for their court hearings when they're supposed to and follow the laws. The 16-year-old girl that we spoke with, she and her dad, they had, I believe it was them, I think they had their asylum, they had authorization until 2028. So they're sitting there in 2026 right now. They have 2 more years where they were here legally at least. And that's the case with a lot of these folks, is they follow the rules. And now they're asking, well, why are you putting me in a prison? If I followed all of your rules, I did what you said, the way you said I should do it, and now here I am.
The 16-year-old girl, where's she from?
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Can I add something?
Please.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think not only does it incense me that this is that people are profiting off of the pain of children and families, and but the other thing that is that, you know, none of this is naturally occurring. It's all man-made. So the cruelty, you know, very much is the point. But in addition to the medical neglect, the human rights abuses, the violation of constitutional rights, and more, Congressman Castro and I were talking with a family, and you know, in the work of oversight, the great Elijah Cummings, our former chair, would tell us that our charge was to be an efficient and effective pursuit of the truth. That truth is being obstructed at every turn. Detainees are signing consent forms and cannot even get a copy of the consent forms they are signing. And Congressman Castro, what was the one instance where they thought they were signing one thing for consent and what they actually signed were self-deportation forms? So again, the abuse goes beyond even the physicality of things. And then finally, I would say we were not able to see more than one child. There were 112 children, and we spoke to that one 16-year-old. But it was eerie in the intake space to see posters of Moana and Ninja Turtles, and Bluey was playing on the screen. And I had asked, are there toys and books and things for the children? And they said yes. But the thing is, even if they provided them with a plethora of playing options, no child should be in jail. They told us out of the 112 children, they range in age from 2 months to 18. So if a cage is gilded, it is still a cage, and they should not be there.
Any final question?
Just one more. You've been there how many times already?
This is my 7th this year.
Said. And every time you go in, you come out, tell us the horrific stories inside. They don't abide by the same rules as everybody else. I mean, here is a oversight committee that you ask questions, they don't even answer. And the question they should answer, why do they keep allowing you to go in?
Listen, that's a great question. And this is what I described to you as a big part of the reason that myself and the others here voted against giving ICE more than $100 billion extra money over the past year. Because we can't exist in this kind of secrecy and lack of accountability and transparency. It's damaging not only to the human beings that are in prison, including the children, but it's also damaging to the United States of America. And I will say, you know, I think all of us, we were shocked that they wouldn't give us basic answers like how many federal employees, how many ICE agents are working at this facility. And I've got to say, during this new administration, Secretary, we noted before that they're reading from a script. When we ask them questions, they read from a script. And also disappointed that the ICE field director in San Antonio has not shown up the last few delegations that we've taken over to Dilley, you know, has not even shown up to Dilley to be present for that, even though we're trying to do our work there.
The National Guard is there.
Please.
National Guard
Yeah,
Are there still National Guard there? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I can take that. We asked that question and they're in a changeover, but there will continue to be a National Guard presence. And we asked, that was another number that we couldn't get a precise answer to, but eventually got the sense that, or an answer that there had been about 24 Texas National Guard there. But I wanted to also just add one thing to what Congressman Castro answered as to why they continue to let Congressman Castro visit. And that's because they have to. Because it is the law that members of Congress have the right to inspect ICE detention facilities. It's written into the law that appropriates the funding, and it is the law. And what we have seen is that unfortunately that law has been violated consistently by this administration, and that members of Congress have had to sue to get access to these facilities. They've implemented all kinds of rules. You have to give 48 hours notice. You have to do all kinds of things to get in there. The 2 hours to the question about what did we see? We didn't get to see everything that we wanted to see because we were cut off after 2 hours. And I made a comment on the way out saying, oh, I thought we were going to go back to the medical unit after we visited people. Well, your 2 hours are up. And so they're implementing a lot of rules that are out of nowhere to limit the amount of oversight. But at the end of the day, the American people have demanded that we have the ability to conduct this oversight, to go into these facilities. But we need to use every tool that we have, which means we have had to go to the court to enforce it. Members of Congress have had to sue for that right. And we need everybody speaking up in every platform in every way that they can, because what we're seeing now is that to be successful here, especially in this Republican-controlled Congress that will not check this administration, that will not hold these oversight hearings, that will not conduct these oversight visits, that everyone, everywhere, from the Congress to the courts to the community, needs to be speaking out and speaking out as loudly as possible. And I do think that when we all do that, we will be able to continue to do the work of oversight, and we will be able to get this Dilley detention facility closed. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.